Ready. Who's good? Two.
Welcome, everybody, and sorry we're starting a little bit late. I'm glad to see there are a few. Develop policies on performance management. So we've used the UPM system for several years now, but a lot of the managers and employees, they don't use that system except for once every year. And as you'll see through the training, it's good to be coaching and instructing and talking with your employees and with your bosses about performance more than just once a year. But because you only use it once a year, we wanted to have you go through it, and as we go through, if you have any questions, let us know. So we'll just go ahead and get started. Thank you. And sorry about that. And also, if you could go ahead and sign the rolls and then just have it come up, that'd be great. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you. So I am actually not normally the one that does UPM. That would be Jill Barella, who let me handle that this year. So what I did to prepare is just a little tool that I wanted to show you guys really quickly. On the Employee Gateway, I just searched UPM training. And that brings up some training videos on the three main ways, and I'll talk about it as well, but the three main ways that you'll be using UPM. And then what I'm going to play with today is the UPM test site. So I'm sure that most of you are familiar with the Utah Performance Management System that we refer to as UPM. And today we will go over the three main ways that you'll be using UPM, which are accepting AAAs, I'll define that in just a moment, creating a performance plan, and evaluating performance. And so let's start. So I'm just in a test site right now, but there's a couple different ways that you can get to UPM. You can type in upm.utah.gov, or on the Employee Gateway, once you log in, down in the middle, you can see you can just click on that. So if you're logged into the Employee Gateway and you click on that UPM icon, it'll take you right to the site. So that's what I would normally do, but since I'm going to the test site, I'm just going to go over here where I'm already logged in, and we're going to use Carlos as our example. So we're going to start.
Please don't show the year I failed my performance plan.
Don't worry, it's only going to show his staff, not his own personal one. But we'll start with, oh, there we go. We'll start with AAAs. Does anyone know what AAAs are or what they stand for? And I have candy if you guys answer and help. So AAAs are actually, they're not a type of battery or your car insurance. They stand for the authorizations, agreements, and acknowledgments. And so you guys have all had to fill these out before. You've probably seen when you get emails, HR we're the ones that push that through to you guys, but they're for the acceptable use of technology, code of conduct, conflict of interest, those type things, a cell phone policy. And I think recently we've just added the exercise agreement on there. And so that's kind of just an electronic way for us to get information out to employees. And what a AAA really is it's policies that employees need to abide by while employed with the state of Utah. So in order to view one, and this will be from the personal side of this, not as a supervisor, but just as an employee, if you see that you have a AAA you need to go to, uh-oh. Let's try that again. Sorry, I decided not to plug into the wireless, so I think it kicked, or to the wired one, that kicked me out. Let's see. Well, hopefully he can edit this out of the video. Okay, so this is what the test site looks like, so you don't really have to pay attention to this. But if you ever did want to practice, where I showed you where those training videos are, if you scroll all the way down to the bottom of the page, it says UPM test site. So it's something that you can go in, play around with, and that's a great way to kind of practice. I think a lot of people are in the habit of just copying performance plans, which is absolutely fine. But when you want to make it more specific for your individual employees, which we hope that you're doing, this would be a great way for you to kind of go in and practice and know that you're not going to mess anything up. Okay, so once again, if you were going to go and acknowledge a AAA, what you'll see is, so if he went to me, like Carlos's stuff won't come up, no. But see right here where it says edit, it'll actually say acknowledge. And there's a couple of different ways that you can do that. So in some cases, you're required to enter a response. So I'll just click on this one. So this one that we have as an example is the acceptable use of technology resources. And you do have to enter a response in order to go through. Then at the bottom where it says save, it will actually say acknowledge. So you'll just push that button. And some of them are just requiring that you do acknowledge the policy and you don't have to submit a response. So that's where you would click the acknowledge button and move on. Is there any questions on that? I kind of breezed right through that AAA.
Let's see. Okay, I had to turn it off. Just on these AAAs, I just want to mention that one of the AAAs is a conflict of interest form, which is included in our code of conduct form. And we request that all employees who have a secondary job to complete that form. We've had issues in the past where the employee did not complete a conflict of interest form, and an issue came up, and not having completed that, declaring to your supervisor that you have a second job, it causes troubles later on. So that's one of the forms that we really insist on employees completing, assuming you do have a secondary job. Sometimes the secondary jobs, the boss may request for you to work overtime, or there's a spillover effect of your secondary job to your primary UDOT job, and it causes some conflict. So having completed that goes a long ways in avoiding any troubles in the future regarding having secondary jobs. Does anyone have questions about that conflict of interest form? Okay, yes. It's on the gateway, but we also push that form out every year on the...
Almost.
You just take it to them. We push out that conflict of interest form every year, so you should get that in the in an email saying there's a conflict of interest attached to your performance, or we can just send you one in.
It's not attached to UPM though, right?
Okay, I think there's a link to that, is what that is. So, and if you want, I can get your name and send that to you on email after the training. All right, thank you.
And also on those conflict of interest forms, I go over the code of conduct in our new employee trainings. And so every new employee is getting a copy of that as well. I know it doesn't, and that stuff changes all the time. You can go and get another job while you're employed, but we are trying to catch employees as they're coming on as well. And they have a copy of that form that they're supposed to turn into their supervisors. So moving on, as a supervisor, you're also responsible for creating both a performance plan, which is when you go over your performance expectations with your employees, and then at the end of their probation period and every fiscal year, you will evaluate your employees. These plans are not to be used as a means of increasing salary, but as a means of evaluating performance. And so I'm just going to go through and show you a couple different ways that you can create a plan. And all of them are quite intuitive. So once you get started with one step, it'll kind of lead you through it, and you should be able to figure it out. If not, those training videos walk you step by step as well. But I'll just go through one. So what I know a lot of people do when they go through to create a plan is you can just copy a plan. If things haven't really changed, the responsibilities and duties for an employee haven't changed from one year to the next, it's very easy to just go through and recopy that plan. So for example, if Carlos was going to make a new plan for Jeanette, he would just click copy plan, and then this dialog box will pop up. So you'll select the employee, so we're copying Jeanette's previous year plan, and the dates, if you're doing the fiscal year. So probation period's different. So we'll just say this was an annual one. The dates will always be 7/1, and we'll do it from this year, to June 30th of the next year. So then you'll choose a purpose. So the purpose that we're going to do is the annual one, but you can also do you should be doing one for probationary employees, and those periods cannot be extended unless the employee has had a period of leave without pay longer than 2 weeks. Probation evaluation dates will not follow fiscal year dates. And then there's another one, which is performance improvement. And Marianne Davis is our HR specialist, but whoever the U.HR specialist is at the time, that's who you would need to speak to before you put your employee on one of these plans. You wouldn't just do it without talking to either Marianne or Carlos. But just for this example, we're going to go ahead and do an annual one. Oh, and you're right, thank you. Okay, so we'll do the annual plan, and then you have to click on add to get it to select her, and then you'll apply the plan. And so that has created the plan. A second method to create a plan is using the templates. So you can, I'll show you if you would like to see at the end, but you can use these templates. You can also create your own templates is what I was going to say. And so we just want to do one for an HR analyst, and then we'll apply the plan, which will bring up the dialog box, and then we'll just go through and do the exact same thing. Change the dates. I'm used to having my 10 key, can you tell? And then annual, and then it's the exact same. We have to hit the add button to bring her down, and then apply plan. And it's created the plan. So the third way is to click the create plan next to the employee's name. So we'll click on that next to Jeanette's name. It'll bring up the dialog box, and we'll add the dates. And the purpose. And then this time we'll choose the template here, which is HR analyst, and create the plan. So now she has a lot of the same plans. So it looks like I went into that plan. So we're a little ahead of ourselves because I don't want to do that yet. So let's see. With the last two methods, you can then edit the plan to make it applicable to the employee. So really, with any of them, you can do that, though. You'll just go in and click edit, which is what I did. And then you can delete goals that are brought over from the template. So let's say, okay, last year she used to ensure use of data, and this year we want to make that more specific, or we want to do something else. So we can delete this one, and then you can always go through and add a new goal. Have you guys Is there one way more than another that you guys do when you're using your plans? Are you generally just copying them or changing the goals at all? Make a whole new plan. And so are you using those templates?
Like this year when we did it, we still had our 5 initial goals.
Right.
We couldn't change that form, even though we made, we had new goals that this year we couldn't change.
Yeah, you should be able to go through and edit those and delete the goal and then add a new goal. In fact, you can even go on the top and then change that goal.
Well, I should clarify, it was the mission statement. Didn't change
Oh,
it
right.
this
Yeah.
year. And even though we had a whole new mission statement, we still had the original 5 from last year.
Right, and those should have been changed probably about a month to a month and a half ago. Yeah, so I had Jill change those on those because they cascade down to all the supervisors. So those should be changed now. If they're not, and somebody notices that, let us know. So,
See, Jamie, I'm usually copying the plans,
Mhm.
then I customize and modify.
And then go through and modify each
And
one.
then they have sort of the same strategic direction and goals that we're working on together.
Okay.
that's
Yeah,
a good
perfect.
thing.
That's exactly what we want to see, because we want to make it as easy and seamless for you as possible. So we want you to be able to go in and copy those plans or edit those templates. So I'm going to go through really fast and just kind of show you how to create your own template, because it's easy to copy from one employee's year to the next. But let's say that you get a new employee in that's doing the same work and you don't want to start from scratch. This would be a great way to do it. So what you'll do, and see, I told you, we're learning this together because Jill's not here, and I'm not normally the one that does this. So we'll go and right next to, let's say, Jeanette's name, we'll click on Create Template. And this will be an HR Analyst 2. So you'll give it a name, and then you'll select the goals that you want. And we want all of these goals. And then we'll just click on Save. And it gave me an error because I think we already have a template like that. But then once you've done that, you should be able to see your new template here. So then that's something that you've customized and you've created, and you can use that over and over. And you'll still want to, like Todd said, go in individually and edit each of the goals in each person's plan. So the last step is the most important step in the plan. You'll get emails from HR if you haven't activated plans for your employees or they haven't been completed yet. The last step is to activate the plan so that your employee can make his or her additions or comments. So when you get a new employee or at the beginning of a new fiscal year, you're going to want to create their plans and get everything organized. And then you're going to want to go back in. So we'll go into Edit and then go down to the bottom and activate the plan. This will send your employee an email that will let them know that they need to go in and they can make comments or additions to the plan. And then once they do that, they can save it, and then we begin the evaluation period. And it shouldn't happen at the end of that fiscal year where you're sitting down talking to your employee for the first time and letting them know how they've done over the past year. We're hoping that you're having those interactions with your employees on a daily basis and just letting them know where they can improve and when they're having their successful moments as well.
And I just want to interject a bit on that last step to activate the plan. Our office does reports on those who have not completed performance plans. And if your name comes up as not having completed a performance plan for your employee and you did a plan, it's probably the most likely answer is that the button that says activate was not hit. In fact, when we send those reports out to the regions and some of the group leaders, they come back and say, no, we did a plan last August. And so we look in there and we actually find out that the plan was done, but it wasn't activated. So that last step on activation is really key to ensuring that the plan is done. So.
Okay, so once that evaluation period is complete, whether it's the end of the probation period or the end of the fiscal year, you need to go back into UPM to complete your employee's evaluation. So let's go back into this one. I think this is the one I just activated. So we'll go and click on the edit button. Oh, yep, and that is the one. And so once the plan's showing, you can begin to enter you can begin the evaluation by clicking on the Evaluations tab. So you'll go through, and it wants you to go through the goals one by one. And as a supervisor, you can make comments, let them know how you feel they performed at that goal throughout the year. And then the outcome, which is either meets expectations or does not meet expectations. And then the day that you evaluated it, and you'll hit the save button, continue, and then you can just hit the next button to move on to the next goal. And then you'll do that one by one until you've gone through all of the goals. Is there any questions on that? I'm sure you guys have all done that a million times. So we'll just skip through that part.
Just by the show of hands, how many supervisors are in here? Okay, excellent, great, thank you.
Okay, so we'll continue that pattern until each of the goals have been evaluated. And after each goal has been evaluated, we can move on to the next step in the evaluation by clicking on the summary comments. So I actually earlier today asked Carlos for clarification on the difference between the summary comments and the performance notes. So the performance notes is what you're going to use throughout the year just to document what your employee's been doing. You know, on October 28th, Jamie gave a fabulous performance at the UPM portion of her conference and did such a successful job that she, Anyways, so that's where you'll go through and you'll make performance notes and just, I think that so-and-so should work on this a little bit, or maybe needs improvement on this, or did do a great job on this, because at the end of the year, you're not going to remember what happened 6 months ago, 3 months ago, This is a great way to track that type of information. But the summary comments are going to be used more, correct me if I'm wrong, during your evaluation period when you're going through finalizing that performance plan for your employee. So you'll want to just make comments for each of these different areas, the achievement and strengths, development plans, and then any additional comments you might have for that employee, and then you can go ahead and save those right there.
Is that where the employee makes entries as well?
The employees have the right to make a comment in response to a supervisor's comments on there as well. So, and those, those performance notes, they're also used if you're working with an employee on a little bit more coaching and instruction. You could write a note to yourself that on this day I talked with the employee regarding this, and these were the instructions that were given, and just so that you document all of your employees' performance from that perspective. So, but yeah, the employee can comment on there, and the reason when they comment on there is when the evaluation is, the supervisor is going through the evaluation, the employee meets with the supervisor, and that's when they can put their comments in. So
So during the year, the employee cannot put anything in the performance?
yes, they can.
They can, right?
Mhm.
I usually have my guys, if they finish a training, I'll say, okay, put that in there that you completed class on this day, just to keep record.
Yes, they can do that.
Yeah, and that's a really great idea, actually, because I know a lot of people, the employee and the supervisor only look at it twice a year, once to start it and once to finish it. And so I think if you're actively going through and adding those kinds of things, and it's also giving that employee an opportunity to go in and remind themselves of what goals you set for them and what accomplishments they'd like to fulfill by the end of that year. And to answer your original question, they can leave comments themselves in summary comments, but where you're making comments like on the goals and stuff like that, I believe at the bottom of that, they can also respond to those comments there as well.
When the employee does go in there and make comments, an email will be sent to the supervisor so that you can review that, and you probably think, well, maybe these comments aren't appropriate for the UPM and they're more appropriate in a different forum, and so you talk with your employee about that before accepting those comments.
Yep, so like Carlos said, that is the end of the the process there. Once you've gone through and finished evaluating the employees, so actually, we didn't finish that. Let's go back. So we'll do summary comments. I have to type something really good to let it go to the next. I don't think that's where it is. Oh, okay. So what we did was we just went through and saved all of our comments. Then the employee can go through, they can make their comments. And then after everything has been correctly evaluated and your employee has acknowledged that they've reviewed the plan with you, go back into the plan and finalize it in the summary tab. So you'll come back here. So that's another thing. When Carlos said we run reports and you get the emails because you haven't activated the plan, another really common issue is that you've gone through it with your employee, you've activated the plan, everything has been completed, but at the end of all of this, you didn't finalize it. So you'll want to go through here. We'll just do all of this. So it was an annual plan. This employee met expectations and did a great job. And then the employee would go through, so you'll mark, yes, I discussed it with my employee, and then on the other side of that, the employee will be able to finish there and see where they can leave some comments there as well. So you'll go through all of that, work through the goals. You can see if either of you have made comments, and then we'll save that. But I didn't finalize all the goals. I only did that first one. So you should see the finalize button when you do all this. It should be right here next to the save button when everything's done. So if we had gone through all those goals together and evaluated all of them where we were clicking next and save and making any comments for how that employee completed those goals throughout the year, then this is where you'll see the finalize button. And then you're done. And once a plan has been finalized, it cannot be unfinalized. So if you had a reason that you needed to unfinalize that plan and make changes for whatever it was, you would need to contact your HR field office.
Okay. Any questions?
Do you guys have any questions? Do you want me to go over anything else? I feel like I kind of sped through that.
I have questions.
Uh-huh.
So we know that we don't just get raises with the state. A good performance summary report, does that help if we apply for other positions?
Yeah, it does, because a lot of times supervisors, they ask other supervisors how have they been doing on their performance, and the supervisor says, well, their performance ratings for the last 7 years have been successful. But it's interesting, you raise a good question, because the evaluations, while they are successful, we also have employees that apply for jobs and their performance is very successful, but they don't get picked anyway, and so they wonder, well, why aren't I getting picked? I've been successful, I've been doing a great job. And they're going to talk about interviewing in a session tomorrow, and that's a different aspect. But on this, as you get your successful in your evaluations, the thing is to discuss with your boss all the time about performance, or you discuss with your employees immediately. If there's an issue, discuss it with them immediately and not let it fester, because if it does fester, the employee turns around and says, well, I've been doing this for the past 3 months and nobody has said anything to me. And so it kind of causes a morale issue, and it breeds feelings of mistrust when the supervisor isn't upfront. And there's an art to being upfront with your employees, and you don't come down hard on the employee, but you have an exchange of dialogue as far as the performance is concerned. The other thing, and I'm going to kind of digress just a bit, is we have seen in our UPM reports that supervisors don't do the plans until December, January of the following year, even April. And sometimes when evaluations are ready to be done, they do the plan and the evaluation. And the plans are usually supposed to be done after the fiscal year. And in all reality, there's not a problem with doing that. But when you do have an issue with the employee, the first thing HR will ask is, well, what does it say in their performance development plan? Oh, I don't have one. There were no guidelines. There's no plan there. And so it causes issues as far as dealing with the employee. So you want to try to do those plans as quickly as possible after the fiscal year.
Another question, for the reverse, if it doesn't meet expectations, I mean, what kind of impact does that have?
Okay,
I
so.
know it raises, but.
Right, and so if it doesn't meet expectations, number one thing, if an employee gets an unsuccessful rating, that should not be a surprise to the employee. He or she shouldn't say, hey, what happened here? Why are you? Because there's an assumption that the supervisor discusses any performance that is deficient with their employees. You're above board with them, and it's not a surprise to them. And so according to the rules, if an employee gets an unsuccessful rating, the manager may put them under a PIP and have them go through it used to be called corrective action process, but a performance improvement plan where you try to coach and instruct the employee and train them in any areas that you feel they're deficient in. Any other questions? There's been good questions, thank you. So, yeah.
Do you have any documents that you had to do a write-up of any kind? Is there any way to put that in your performance notes? Can you copy and paste or?
Yeah, there's a section in there where if you have a write-up, say on a Microsoft Word document, you can get the URL and then paste it on there as a link, or just simply attach it onto the UPM system. So, and we often have that for supervisors who want to put in, oh, they did this graph that looked excellent, and they attach that on there. So there is a way to do that. Okay, any other questions? We used to have a paper documentation process, and we'd have files and files of performance plan over the years. So this electronic UPM system we developed several years ago, and it's been working pretty good as far as we know, unless we hear differently. Been working pretty good. There's a few issues with it that we're working with, but hopefully that won't impact too much on our supervisors at UDOT. So, any other questions? Okay, and did all of you sign the roll? I want to make sure that we get everyone signed in. All right, thanks a lot. Okay, anything else? Okay, thanks a lot, everyone. Appreciate it.